A nation where magic is plentiful, spellcraft is taught, practiced, and perfected, all while serving as the place where the long-term ramifications of arcane war can be observed anywhere outside of what would most call the tourist attraction that is the capital of this nation. After just reading over the next portion of the book, there was no way I could just make a single Nex and Geb video, let alone a single Nex video. The Impossible Lands is chocked full of content, so let's dive in. Welcome to part 1 of the next video, part of the Where in the World's Impossible Lands series, part of the Where in the World series here on Cardinal Adventures. There is little argument amongst those who study magic in Galarian that Nex, the person, was or is the most powerful wielder of arcane magic. I chose my words carefully, unlike the author.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Whoa, calm down. I'm not insulting the author. I just want to point out something here that most people probably missed. Lore rant incoming. In this book, Nex is referred to as the Archmage Wizard King, while in the Lost Omens World Guide, Nex is referred to as Archmage Nex, an avid arcanist. I find it quite interesting that Paizo would do this. Liam, is it that big of a difference? Hell yeah, it is. For those who are unaware, an arcanist is a hybrid class from Pathfinder 1st edition that stands apart from a wizard. Arcanists are a hybridization of a sorcerer and a wizard, who seek to understand their innate sorcerer gifts through arcane academic study like a wizard. This type of understanding takes it far longer for them to progress. However, they're able to bend magic to their whim, since they understand it from both sides of the same coin, innate and studied power. Lore rant complete. Nex's influence has stood the test of time, as it has been 4 millennia since Nex, the Arcanist's disappearance. But as much wonder as the nation presents, it is definitely wrought with its own problems. From civil discourse in the capital of Quantium to the wastelands in between the grand cities being filled with bandits and much more horrible creatures that would even frighten an experienced adventurer. Nex's national borders used to be larger and less barren before the Archmage's war between Nex and Geb 4 millennia ago. That war caused so much damage between the two warring nations that it damn near ruptured the ley lines that reside between them. This stretch of land is known as the Mana Wastes. More to come in that video. As far as geography goes, Nex has 3 primary points of interest and 3 secondary points of interest. I will be covering the first primary point and all 3 secondary points of interest in this video. I'll be starting with the secondary points of interest as they span the entire nation as a whole, whereas the primary point of interest is specific to that city. First, the circulation, also known as the circulation of Nex, refers to the 3 trade routes that connect the 3 major cities of Nex together: Quantium, Echonis, and Enopian. Protected and defended by the many men and Nex's military, these roads are also known as arteries, and they have been destroyed and rebuilt many times over in years past due to the war between Nex and Geb. But just because there's a tenuous peace between the two nations does not mean that Nex's guard is down. The road between Quantium and Echonis is known as Barapama Damnu, or Road of Blood. The road between Echonis and Enopian is known as Barapara Uchafru, or Road of Dirt, and the road between Enopian and Quantium is known as Barapara Dahabior, or Road of Gold. The second secondary point of interest is the Miasmir. War has its costs, especially arcane ones. The Miasmir is a constant reminder of that. As beautiful of a display as it is when traveling the Nexus capital of Quantium, all of that water is magically toxic, and even the best and brightest alchemists are still looking for a permanent, long-term solution to purify it. The waters are so toxic that if boats aren't alchemically treated against the waters, the boat's hulls will dissolve in a matter of days. To make matters worse, the toxicity also causes water to evaporate and produce toxic rain. On a side note, cleansing the miasmere could make for a very interesting mid to high level adventure. The third secondary point of interest is the Valkus Isle. What used to be a resort for the Nexian nobility is now a stain on the Arcanist's former glory. When one of his magical experiments went awry, he was forced to seal it away behind an impenetrable barrier, known as the Stalwart Wall. It is still used as a dumping ground for any of Nex's undesirables. It is said that Quantium is a city that is made to eclipse all others, and it honestly could. The circular city is 15 miles wide in diameter, which is massive when compared to any other city on Galarian minus 1 or 2 I can think of. The eastern city port is a mile wide, which allows for a vast amount of trading goods within the city. The city is also made up of an upper and lower portion, and they're both large enough to be cities of their own. The upper city is called Dwali, and the lower is called Nawezi. If that wasn't enough, the Grand Palace is a triangle-shaped floating island whose entrances are on a need-to-know basis. One does not simply enter the Bandishah. Let's take a look at Quantium's settlement block, though. It has a council-style government, which I will cover later, with a population of 60,000, which is why it has the metropolis trait. Interesting breakdown of ancestries here, though. 45% human, 13% gnomes, 3% catfolk, 2% ratfolk, 2% fleshwarp, 1% goron, and 34% other. The languages spoken here are Kelish, Osiriani, Taldane, and Vudrani. Notice I didn't say common. I love the flavoring that can come for that. And granted, you can make the argument that common is spoken everywhere, but, I like that it's not. I generally like that it wouldn't be just spoken everywhere. Either way. Be sure to get with your game master about ensuring you have one of these languages if your character hails from Quantium. The practiced religions are as diverse as its population. Abadar, Abraxas, Calistria, Irori, Mahathala, Nethys, Norgabur, Pharasma, and Sarenrae. This is such an interesting palette of religious choice within a city. Comment below which of one of those deities you would want to see a video of. I have already done Abadar and Calistria. Be sure to check out the Oh My Gods videos for more of that. There are 5 points of interest within Quantium that I'll cover, although I can assure you there's plenty to see and do within the Grand Metropolis. First, the Bandishar. Although entrance is forbidden to outsiders, without express permit, simply being close enough to witness its beauty from within the city is a breathtaking experience not many are afforded. As a game master, gaining admittance could be a wonderful carrot on a stick to any spellcaster. No worries, your secret is safe with me. Second, the network of 19. Every 19th day is a crossing day, meaning that there are doorways and portals that allow travelers access to the Undercity of Quantium. This does not mean everyone is granted access. It is strictly monitored, as approval must be sought out prior to the next crossing day. Although enough gold or exchange of goods could allow certain strings to be pulled. Wink, wink. Third, the Scriven Bow. This library is on the eastern side of Dwali, above the network of 19. It is the Demon Lord Abraxas' personal library. It houses an extremely niche but highly sought after arcane knowledge. One can only gain admittance to the library by procuring rare knowledge for one of its owners. Additionally, this admittance typically comes with an offer of becoming a keeper of Abraxas, granting you full access to the library. As a side note, I would make the argument that a player or players could only learn, or receive magical Abraxan tattoos through becoming a keeper of Abraxas or making a keeper of Abraxas helpful. Fourth, the Warlock's Walk. Quantium's most popular park is located in Dwali on the southeastern side of the city. Often called the walk, the appearance of this park shifts according to the seasons and many holidays celebrated in Nex. Even when there isn't a holiday or reason to celebrate, many people gather here to share arcane knowledge and watch artists and performers entertain the locals. To top it off, the Vizier's fountain located at its center is enough to calm anyone's restless mind. And fifth, the washport. This mile-wide port I referred to in the overview section of Nex. It is in Nawezi, and it's in the eastern entrance, and it's heavily guarded by magical wards. The traffic system is something of a marvel as well. The waters are purified by Marids, water genie elementals, led by Orion, a noble Marid. The water requires the Marids due to the heavy pollution caused by the miasmir I mentioned earlier. As for the people of Quantium, it is far from expectation. Constructs walk the streets. Gorons plant their seeds to prepare for their next life. Catfolk chase ratfolk down alleyways in the Undercity. Fleshwarps and mutants publicly lobbying for countryside provisions. In case you haven't read it in the settlement block, the city's unique characteristic reads, "Nothing's weird anymore." Quantium residents regularly see extraplanar beings, travelers from afar, constructs, flesh forgers, from Echonis, oozes from Anopian, and more walking the streets. Nothing surprises them at this point. Whether a character is a monster or a member of an obscure ancestry, heritage, or class, residents of Quantium are unfazed and rarely treat those characters differently than they would treat a human in the same circumstances, other than respecting the power of any being that's obviously dangerous. This segues wonderfully into the next topic, culture. As accepting as Quantium is of all of the characteristics I just mentioned above, Quantium is surprisingly quite classist in regards to one's social status. Although artists, musicians, and writers travel to Quantium to show off their talents, if it wasn't obvious, the primary appeal to visiting Quantium is arcane knowledge. The different classes from lowest to highest are Galicite, Populasi, Rastrashi, and Bandasharite. Another cultural topic taken very seriously in Quantium, and Nex in general, is death. The body and spirit are purged from existence within hours of whatever religious final rites are done for the dead. Both the body and spirit are purged so that they may never rise again to be used as Gebite subterfuge. There is even a dedicated faction within Echonis known as the Echonusi Death Sealers, whose job it is to ensure that the body and spirit are removed from an individual after they pass onto the boneyard to be judged by Pharasma. There are many factions within Quantium, so I'll give a brief summary of each. First, the Bandasharite. These are the rulers and delegators of not only Quantium, but most of Nex as a whole. Second, her most keen eye. This is Nex's network of spies and informants who seek out plots against the nation. Third, the Breath. Membership is strictly on a need-to-know basis and off the books, as this is Nex's official assassin organization. Fourth, Quantium's Wish. This faction is composed of the aristocratic Jinni families who are in charge of maintaining the city's construction projects. Fifth, the Archlords of Nex. Led by Argelis Kisk, the Archlords represent Nex, the Arcanist Vision, by guidance of his personal journals that have been held and passed down from each leader of the faction. For more information about that faction, be sure to watch my Archlords of Nex video. Sixth, the Populasi and Rastrashi. The Populasi, or popular interest of Quantium, are the citizens with enough power to dictate political happenings within the city, whereas the Rastrashi, or everyday people, are actually responsible for the majority of cash flow within the city. But don't tell them that, because then they won't play the social status game anymore. Seventh, the Merchants League of Nex. Although this faction's lead advocate, Pavy Ro Canavri, occupies one of the seats of the Nine, most of the League's dealings consist of organizing trade within the city, dictating tax brackets, and settling trade disputes and analyzing market value. 8th, the Gallicite. Also known as the Alley People, the Gallicite are associated with all things illicit within Quantium. Larceny, murder, trafficking, or anything else that would be considered nefarious is often tied to this faction. 9th, the Passages of Nex. I wouldn't really deem it a faction per se. They are more of a presence within the nation. Composed of slain enemies and victims of Nex's war or magical experiments, they claim to speak and represent Nex himself and warn that his return will doom the nation. However, most of these passages are never seen in public as they are hunted by the Bandasharite to maintain order within Quantium. 10th and final, the Keepers of Abraxas. As they were mentioned earlier, these are trusted librarians and servant of the demon lord Abraxas. The chief keeper, cleric, and leader of the Keepers of Abraxas is Gen Hendricken. The governmental body that resides within Quantium truly governs Nex as a whole. This body is known as the Council of 3 and 9. The 9 is composed of the primary representatives that allow the arcane machine that is Nex to continue. The 3 of the Council have the final say on any major decisions that the Council of the 9 wants to pass. The members of the Council of the 9 can be seen on screen. The members of the Council of 3 consist of Elder Architect Oblosk, Irenes of the Orb, and Argelis Kisk. The Council of 3 have shaped Nex into a more functional nation over the last millennia as they have tried to establish a self-governing nation, although strings will always need to be pulled one way or another. I will be wrapping things up with a time section, as it should help both players and game masters alike. What's it like to spend a day in Quantium? Well, if you aren't from Quantium, it's honestly too much to absorb in one day. From the lights around the city in a dazzling prismatic display to the plain-filled undercity that is the Nawezi. Most adventurers and visitors can't even afford half of the goods they lay their eyes on. Almost everyone you meet is infatuated in their work. They're trying to sell you something, or they're someone that looks down on you for not being at the same certain social status they are at. If that's a day, what's a year like in Nex? It is said that there is so much hustle and bustle in Quantium that the amount of information a visitor would be exposed to in a month would be the equivalent to what they would typically experience in a year anywhere else. So you can only imagine the amount of information, ideas, knowledge, and events that occur within Quantium in a whole year. What's even more fascinating is that living in the Juali and the Nawezi are two completely different ways of life. Due to the miasma affecting the nation's water, there are beautiful multicolored torrential downpours that can be viewed from the Juali. But being in the Nawezi is another experience. The rain that trickles down through the aqueducts would be nice to see, but the sound of thunder bangs and clatters through the undercity as if it had been struck in the middle of a cave. And if that wasn't enough to make your head spin, Quantium operates on 3 different calendars, one of which is made up of 369 days. Thanks for joining me in learning an overview of Nex as a nation along with its capital of Quantium. I know it was a bit longer than my more recent videos, but as I stated earlier, there's a lot of content regarding Nex and Geb, and I didn't want to shortchange the work that the authors put into this book. Listen to the Cardinal Adventures podcast, where I'm running Abomination Vaults and Quest for the Frozen Flame. I look forward to seeing you all in part 2 of Nex. Subscribe, ring the bell, comment below, and I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy.